Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Collider Flash Recap Show here on the Collider Video Network. My name is John Campea. I am one of your hosts tonight. What are we doing tonight? It's simple. We're going to talk about Arrow. No, we're going to talk about The Flash and episode 2 of season 2, which we just finished watching as we speak. Hopefully you just finished watching it too. Should give a little bit of a warning, I guess, even though the title of this video is The Flash Recap Show. We're going to give spoilers in this show. If you have not watched the episode yet, I highly recommend that you consider just adding this to your favorites list and coming back a little bit later and watching it, because we're going to go into all things about this episode. I first want to give you a chance to welcome the people joining me tonight. First of all, sitting on my left,
I am David Griffin, and I'm so thrilled that Cisco used my horrible pun that I got made fun of last week. He is indeed getting bad vibes, and he said that on this episode. So.
Did you feel the sweet justification roll
yes,
over
the
you?
writers agreed with me. They already wrote that down.
Like a warm embrace.
They knew it was gold.
Sitting over here on my right.
Hi, I'm John Rocha, and I'm also excited. Look, we got Earth 1, we got Earth 2, we got 52. All the things were dropped in this episode. They just went all for it. I can't wait to talk about it.
I'm anticipating several 52 puns
tonight.
And sitting on the end tonight, our guest tonight is...
Hey guys, I'm Kaori Takee. I'm so excited to finally be talking The Flash with you guys and all of you. So...
Yes, well, let's just dive into it. So we saw in the preview, because at the end of the episode, they give that little 15-second preview. We knew he was going to be facing Sand Demon. We knew Jay Garret would be giving him a little bit more insight. We knew we'd be seeing him put on that helmet. Go into that a little bit later. But we're going to talk tonight about a little bit of some positives, some things we really liked about the episode, some things we thought maybe could have been better about the episode, and then we're going to take some of your Twitter questions. And by the way, you can tweet stuff to us anytime, not just tonight. Tweet us, just send out a tweet, and in that tweet, make sure you have the hashtag ColliderFlash, and that way we see it, and we're going to take some of your questions a little bit later. But for now, let's start off with the things we loved about tonight's episode. David, let's start with you. You literally just saw the end credits. Things you liked about tonight's episode.
First off, I loved Jay Garret being involved with the team. They put him in the prison, the one with no beds and no toilets and, no hygiene whatsoever.
And yet he stands there like a GQ model.
I love it when he walks and he's just leaning up against the wall. So I guess you came to your senses, huh? It's like, just waiting for him. I loved him kind of taking on the Obi-Wan Kenobi trope there, just kind of being the teacher, calling him kid. You know, it's like, okay, kid, what are you going to do now? Teaching him, like, again, training over an hour, just trying to get him to be a better Flash, because Barry, again, is going through this whole, he's going through this weird thing, where he's kind of hard, and he's the only one who actually really seems to be affected by what happened 6 months ago.
Right.
Caitlin and them seem to be kind of, maybe we'll talk about that in the weaknesses, kind of just moving on, but Barry's the only one still affected. I think if something like that happened to you, you would be affected. So it's cool to see Jay kind of break through and try to help Barry at least become a better Flash. Maybe he's not the same person he used to be right now, Barry, but at least he's becoming a better Flash. So that was one of my favorites.
What about you, John? What were some of the things that really stood out to you?
Yeah, just to pick up what David was saying, I love the idea that they're now going all in on this father figure thing with Jay Garret. It's something we need. And also the conflict and the struggle that we see Barry going through as he's trying to figure out, like, if he should trust Jay, if he should trust anyone to give him any kind of advice. I love the fact that he is going darker. Like, he's not willing to trust a lot of people. This is what happens. He's constantly in search for a father figure. If it isn't his dad is in jail, it's Joe. Now that Joe's kind of out of the picture.
And his dad splits.
Yeah, his dad splits. I mean, the guy has abandonment issues. I mean, we're gonna explore this. So he's like trusting. He actually has a good heart. So for him, it's probably really hard to trust somebody as you're creating the character, as he's doing the character. And so it's like you're pulling that away from him, and we're seeing what he's struggling with and what the effects of that are, and how it affects his relationship with other members of the team, which I think is giving them a lot more to play with as actors and also as storylines in the show. So I'm loving that.
Kaori?
Yeah.
What are some things you enjoyed about
I actually really enjoyed this episode. I actually preferred it personally more than the season premiere last week. I really liked the introductions of all the new characters, including Patty. I thought she's going to be an excellent character. She's going to cause some conflict, I think. I also, obviously, Old Man Flash. I guess
Old Man Flash.
Old Man Flash. And I really I guess you can say Cisco is also turning into a new character as well. I think that the development of that is going to be extremely intriguing. So I really like that about this episode as well.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed. I did not know what I would think about Jay Garret when he showed up at the end of episode 1.
Right.
It's like, okay, I mean, it's cool that it's Jay Garret. They're bringing in the other Flash. That's cool. But then he just shows up and it's like, how's that going to be handled? I got to tell you, I really like the way it was handled on several levels. Number one, Barry's reaction. You know, the way Barry reacts, I think some people could look at the way Barry was reacting to him like very negative as being, oh, suddenly Barry's being all, you know, sour and everything. No, it totally made sense. As a matter of fact, had he done what everybody else in the team did, was like, what, you're from a different dimension, now you're here to help us? Great, group hug. If he had done that too, I think I would have had a problem with that. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, have we not learned anything from this show? Not everything is always as it seems. And the fact that Barry was very cognizant of that, the fact that he was, you know, had some trepidation about Jay Garret, I think all that speaks to the reality a little bit. Sounds like a ridiculous word to use when you talk about the Flash. I think it spoke to reality. The other thing that I really liked about Jay Garrett's presence is what we see happening to Caitlin. Because, you know, at first I thought it was funny, like Caitlin like is examining his basically top half naked body, and she got a little bit of hair flip going on and whatever. And at first it's like, oh come on, Ronnie just kicked it. But wait a minute, then I heard somebody in the room say, well, it has been 6 months. I'm like, okay, no, wait, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. And she's probably, you know, ready for a little bit of human connection. And that's a nice way of saying rubbing body parts. But I think, so I like the way what he did there. I'm very interested to seeing what they're going to do with Patty moving forward. When you look up like what her character is in the comic books, like, okay, how are they really going to use her here? But still, that's interesting at the same time. I like the villain of the week.
Yeah.
I thought San Demon was pretty cool. I like the way his powers were used and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I don't know that I'd say it's a stronger episode for me than the season premiere, because I really like the season premiere. But for me, the season so far is 2 out of 2. I really enjoyed this episode, had a lot of fun with it. There was some moments, but maybe we'll get into those a little bit right now. So, Mr. Rocha, what were some of the scenes that maybe made you roll your eyes a little bit?
Well, the Patty Spivot introduction was interesting. So I'm like, she's like, I've got 3 degrees and I've got all this stuff, and I'm just
super
a regular
hot, and I'm an ace marksman.
She always has her full name. She's Patty Spivot.
Patty Spivot.
I'm Patty Spivot.
Patty Spivot.
I mean, not to compare, but she's a little bit Felicity Smoke-esque for.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yes.
Well, this is
but even more perfect. Like she's got everything. You know?
Right. And a little bit older, and she's not going to cry every time like she says her dialogue like Felicity does. But no, but it's interesting because we talked about this last week on the show, and we talked about how many more people are going to be added to the Flash team that's going to make it difficult to balance. Like, those were the problems that the Arrow team was having last season. So it's like, okay, we've got Patty Spivot now. She's in the comics, so she's going to be a part of the team now, and an essential part of the team, it seems like, because no one wanted to be part of Joe's meta-human team task force. So now she's stepping in. I also didn't like, you referenced the Jay Garret. It was supposed to be cool, and it looked very cheesy.
But do you think leaning against the leather?
But with the show, do you think Cisco is going to? He's going to do something with it. He's going to make it more modern, I think. I think Cisco is the hat.
Yeah.
I might be in the minority here, but I actually really liked it. I thought it felt right for his Earth or wherever he may come from. I thought it fit. And his outfit, too, was old school Flash.
Yeah.
You know,
I got to admit, I did not mind the outfit. I did think, though, that whole scene of him putting on the hat and look, I was like, wait a minute, am I supposed to be feeling something?
Everybody was in awe of him, like, oh.
I just thought, like, the thought crossed my mind, because if you guys watch Movie Talk at all, you'll hear me say this a lot when the topic comes up of why in the movies don't they make the costumes exactly like they make them? Because sometimes what works on a printed page does not necessarily work on film. And I remember when he put on that hat and looked up, and we're supposed to feel like you said, we're supposed to have this sense of awe. I remember thinking, nope, looks just as stupid on your head as it did sitting on the guy. The hat didn't work for me. But you're right. When he was in that room with Barry and San Demon and stuff like that, and he shows up and he's in that leather jacket top, and he's got the. Even then, I gotta say the hat worked when I looked at it in context, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are some other things that maybe didn't work for you?
I thought the whole idea. I think the whole idea that they're doing with Vibe is going to be interesting how this plays out, because these are not powers.
Curious.
These are not powers that he has in the comics. Like, he does not have this ability to like see things that are happening in another. He is the one guy that can actually disrupt the Speed Force. So to see, I like that they threw this in near the end, that he's afraid of the powers that he has, because Wells gave it to him, and Wells is evil, and he's afraid these could be used for evil. And considering, if you know the history of the comics, that he can disrupt the Speed Force, this is going to be interesting for them to explore this. I thought it would be Caitlin, but it seems like they're going to go towards the Vibe angle to see if maybe he might be evil or might explore being evil. And I'm not 100% happy about that.
Well, I still think that the evil Caitlin's going to come from possibly another universe.
Oh,
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
another
yeah,
multiverse,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to have all these Elseworld stories that we can see. Like, I loved, I know we're in negatives, but talking to positive about Professor Stein being like all these possibilities, like, hey, you know, Barry, you could be an electrician in one, you know, Earth, and you could be this in another Earth. So I hope we get to see all those different varieties. That's going to be fun.
I know. You know, we should make a regular part of this show every week is our favorite Cisco moment.
Yeah.
Because I know we're supposed to be on negatives now, but one of the parts there were several really great Cisco moments for me in this episode. But the one that really stood out to me, and it's a movie reference, of course, he walks in on the professor and he's like, hey, beautiful mind. And that killed me. I love that shot. Anyway, getting back to some of the negatives, Kaori, what about you? What were some of the moments that maybe didn't quite work for you?
And this might be me being a little nitpicky, but actually one of my negatives is actually one of your positives is that I understand what Barry went through, and I thought, you know, it's tough that he trusted someone so much. But that being said, I felt like he was a little too rough on Old Man Flash, you know. I just felt like this guy came.
He's cock blocking Caitlin. That's what he was doing. Like totally, she was busting with her vibe there.
That's probably what happened. He was just a little jelly and all that stuff. But hey, I mean, they needed someone that understood Sandman, and I think that it just went a little too slow, and it was a point where I'm like, all right, come on, Barry, come on, this guy's here for a good reason. So that's really the only thing I really have to say, because I really like this episode.
Yeah, I thought the episode was really strong. Couple of things didn't quite work with me. There were just, okay, first of all, I love full marks for what you were going for, but when Patty and Barry were having that little quoting Holy Grail lines,
Holy Grail, yeah.
and then, I'm like, oh, shut up. Please stop. Like, I get the reference that you're going for, full marks, but that also the whole, I swear we got to do it again. That whole Barry and old man, like that, like, it's like, oh, great, it's Double Dragon. So that, there were some old man Flash moments where I know he's supposed to come off GQ and cool, like, but they just went a little over the top sometimes.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a great character, and I actually overall I really enjoyed him in this episode.
Yeah.
But there were a couple moments that I thought were a little thin like that. There were a couple of other things that I think could have been negative for me, but were saved. Patty just being this gung-ho, I want to join this task force, blah, blah, blah. It was wearing on me. But then when she gave that speech to Joe at the end about her father and all that kind of stuff, it was saved for me. I was like, no, now I get it, and that's great. And I was even starting to feel a little bit with Barry about, even though I like the fact that he was a little bit suspicious of Jay, it was going a little bit too far.
Yeah.
But then he gave that speech to Jay in the practice room, I guess, their form of the Weapon X danger room, I guess. And he says, you know, he gives this whole speech. There was a man I trusted with my life. He taught me all this, blah, blah, blah. And he killed my mother. And I thought that was so well crafted. I suddenly forgave it all. So couple of we're trying to be too cool moments, that whole thing with the Holy Grail quoting. And then a couple of other things that were salvaged for me actually by the end. So those are my negatives. What about you, David?
Before I get my negative, I just want to go on what you're talking about Garrick and talking about learning about Barry's mom being killed and all about Wells. I loved that Jay didn't like coddle him. He didn't go after him and console him. He's like, "Hey kid, that's tough.
Oh yeah,
that's
tough
not
break,
me.
kid.
Like, tough break, kid,
yeah,
but that's not me." You know, he wasn't. He didn't like be like, "Oh, that's awful." Like, "Oh, I lost someone too." He just said, "Sorry, that's not me." You know, live with it, deal with it.
That's what I love about the Flash is also whenever you find things that kind of frustrate you, just like I got frustrated with Barry's skepticism or Patty's gung-ho-ness, they save it with another speech or reasoning. Like, this makes complete sense. I'm satisfied now as a viewer. So they always manage to bring that back up.
So to say, my one weakness, and I don't mind the villain of the week. I'm fine with the villain of the week.
Right.
My issue is that I want a little bit more exposition, or a little bit more backstory, I should say, with the villain. So all these guys want to get home. That's the big thing. We got to see Zoom this week. We got to see Zoom. And we got to see him in the black suit. Kind of reminded me of the whole Blackest Night storyline in the comics a few years back. And he just looked good. But I want to know, like why does he want to get home? Like, I know they can't flesh out a villain in one episode. They can't give him a huge backstory. Maybe just a little bit. Like, not all these guys are just pure evil. You know,
Right.
like I'm going to go kill somebody because I want to. I want to see somebody who comes back and wants to go home. Maybe he or she is a little conflicted. Maybe they don't want to kill the Flash, but they still want to get back. I hope we just don't get these, you know, men and women coming in. They're just pure evils, want to just kill somebody because I want to get home and I'm a villain. I hope we get to see maybe a little bit more ambiguity with the villains. That's all. That's it. I mean, I like the guy. I like the Sand Demon, but I want to see a little more backstory with him.
Why isn't Zoom why hasn't Zoom killed Jay Garret? Like, if Jay doesn't have his speed,
He was about to.
he seems. Well, no, I mean in this world.
Does
not-
he know
not
he's in
before.
this world?
That's what I'm wondering about.
Yeah.
Because he's going. Why is he going after the Flash? How does he know the Flash?
Right.
Like, how does he know to go after the Flash? Like, this is
Well-
this
Well, it
is the
sounds like he
question
said he
that I
wanted to
want.
go through all the different worlds until
Oh,
they're
and kill all the
destroyed.
speedsters and all the
which is
first-
kind of a cool thing. He wants to
yeah.
go through all of them, and he wants to be the only one. It's very, very Matrixy.
I mean, he must be. He must be a very, very powerful character to have other people like his little Sandman and
Yeah.
you know Adam Smasher go try to do it for him. So.
Yeah.
I actually have I'm going to share my theory about Zoom. Well, first of all, I should mention that, you know, in the comments section of last week's episode, and we read the comments, so by all means communicate with us in there. A lot of people saying, "Oh, you guys aren't understanding the differences between Zoom and Professor Zoom and blah blah blah." And what I try to tell a lot of people in the comment section was, look, don't confuse the comic books for the TV show. Yeah, maybe there's two different dudes with these two different backgrounds, and Wells is one guy and all that kind of stuff in the comics. This isn't the comic. Like if all you gotta do is watch one episode of The Flash to know that this ain't the comic book. So I don't believe we're gonna have multiple Zooms. I don't think we're gonna have a Zoom and a Professor Zoom and all this kind of stuff. And that leads me to the prediction I have, which I have become convinced, and probably terribly wrong, I have become convinced that Zoom is Barry Allen from Earth 2 or Earth 3 or Earth... Well, no, Earth 2 is going to be Earth 2 Barry Allen. And the little teaser at the end of this episode to show us Harrison Wells being back, right, in this other world, I think that was a red herring. I think that was to throw us off the trails. Like, oh, Harrison Wells is alive, and the other time he must be Zoom.
Right.
I don't think he is. I
think he is either.
think Barry... Because what was the first thing... I mentioned this to you guys. What was the first thing that Atom Smasher did when he came into our universe? He went and killed his doppelganger. Right. He went and killed that world's version of. And I think Barry, Earth 2 Barry is Zoom. I don't think he wants to kill himself, so he's sending other people to go do it. I think who could be faster, more powerful than Jay Garret? Barry Allen. So once again, probably way wrong. Maybe it's Joe. Maybe it's Cisco. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it is Wells. But my prediction is going to be that it's Barry. So before we get to our Twitter questions, any of you guys have some predictions you want to throw out there about anything that we've seen?
Love triangle in action.
Right?
I mean,
Well, it's a CW. You got to have a love triangle.
Right.
Oh
You gotta
yeah,
have a love
CW. You
triangle.
have to have a love
to be one.
triangle.
Well, is it a quadrangle? No, because you've got Iris, then you've got Barry, then you've got Caitlin, and then you've got Jay, right?
And
Patty.
and
Oh, and
Patty.
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 And
Patty.
I have heard through a source that what was the name of Barry's girlfriend in season 1? Was it Linda?
Oh, yeah, she's coming
Oh,
back.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's coming back.
She's coming
Yeah.
back.
Right.
So that could, I mean, my man Barry's got some.
He's a pimp.
got
Iris's
some
mom.
action going
Iris's mom is back in town.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
like
Intro.
unexpected. It's like it just dawned when she came in and said our daughter. Blah. I realized, oh yeah, they never did say what happened to their mom, to Iris's mom.
Right.
So that's interesting. What kind of role do you think she's going to play here?
What does she want?
Well, that's the
That's
thing.
Yeah,
the
like,
thing.
why
She's
What's her
been
motivation?
contacting
Yeah, she's like,
him.
oh, my daughter. It's like, well, your daughter's been around for a long time now. Like, why are you here now?
It's so funny because as we were watching the episode, I thought to myself, how do these people have all this time to sit around the Star Labs like all the time? Like, doesn't Joe have a wife or doesn't Joe have a girlfriend?
That
And
was
then she showed up
hilarious.
near the
Those
end.
are just like, you're a scientist,
Yeah.
you're a journalist. Like, when is she writing?
Is she?
Why is she not writing
Yeah,
paper?
is she really?
Yeah, you're a journalist.
Right.
Oh, also too, we got to think about Professor Stein passed
Yeah.
out. He
Yeah.
fainted.
Oh, yeah, was
that-
Now is that caused because his disconnect?
I
with,
believe
Right.
so.
Yeah.
It's something to do with his separation from Ronnie, and however they fix it is going to allow him to be Firestorm again, which will lead us into Legends of Tomorrow.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm just making that up. I mean,
It could be possible.
it could be possible.
be.
Sure.
All right, folks, we said we were going to take some of your Twitter questions, so let's get to that right now. Once again, how do you get a Twitter question on our show? Tweet it out and make sure you include the hashtag ColliderFlash. That way we can see it. So we've got 4 questions picked out tonight. Let's get on to the first one. And the first one comes to us from Paul Gaston, who writes, Who do you think will convince, I was going to say conceive, who do you think will convince Cisco to embrace the vibe per se? And could Killer Frost be the Earth 2 version of Caitlin? John?
I feel like Professor Stein is going to be the one that gets him to embrace being vibe. I think they're establishing those two as a very integral relationship now in this season because they're both so intelligent and they play off each other so well. Like just that whole scene where you had Victor Garber jump up and run out the room, like that's really something you don't see a lot of older men do. Yeah. So I thought that was nice. And yeah, I think it's absolutely possible because David, you just mentioned it earlier that Caitlin Snow could become Killer Frost from another Earth to come in, and why not? It would be an interesting exploration for Barry's feelings with her and the team's feelings with her.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in some sort of way, Cisco is going to be the one that's going to have to help Professor come back
Stein,
by using his vibe powers and try to hone in and figure out how to utilize that. And I like how you said Gaston, by the way.
Gaston.
I was like,
My, what a guy like Gaston.
And yeah, Caitlin, there's a very big possibility. I didn't even think about that. So.
Didn't we see her as Killer Frost at the end of season
when he was
one?
doing the running, he saw the,
So was that him looking into Earth 2
I think
a little bit?
I think it was Earth 2. And also, I think another father-son relationship and, Victor Garber's character, Professor Stein and Cisco.
Yeah.
Because we don't really know much
theme
about his family. We know there's a rift. That his brother is the loved one. No matter what he does, they always love him, and he just feels rejected. So Cisco is always looking for a dad too. So that could be another great relationship we're going to see throughout the season.
It's like reverse Disney.
It is. It's pulling out the heartstrings.
Yeah. All right, what's the next question here? The next question comes to us from Quincy Rojas. No, sorry, just Ross. Not a question, but the visual effects have gotten even better than last season. Beautiful work on network TV. Running effect got better. You know, it's funny because I watched a little bit of, it was on Hulu, I believe. They had a special on the visual effects of season 1. Oh, wow. And there were a number of things in season 1 that I didn't even realize were visual effects, and they did a really good job on that. Up to this point, I have to agree. I think they've upped it a little bit. Now, we haven't had a Grodd in this season yet, and they did a great job for television. They did a great job with Grodd in season 1. So I'm waiting for those real big tentpole moments with visual effects. But overall, their standard effects, his running and stuff like that, I also believe they've stepped it up a little bit. So I like them a little bit more. David, what do you think?
I think this episode was a little bit better than last week's. The Atom Smasher to me looked almost too fake. I know
a little rubbery.
Yeah. I know it's hard to do, but this week, the Sand Demon, I thought he looked fantastic. And of course, like I said, the running visuals, I really loved when he was throwing the lightning. That also looked excellent as well. So, I mean, I think they are stepping it up. And, I mean, and they're working with small budgets. I think we're getting spoiled. We're all used to seeing Game of Thrones, $7 million an episode. This show does not have $7 million an episode to work with. So for what they have, their budget, I think they do a fantastic job.
Yeah. I'm glad that our Twitter viewer, Rojas, pointed that out because the battle between the Zoom and Old Man Flash at the very beginning with the warp zone and everything, it looked really cool to me, and I was really impressed. I'm like, wow, they stepped up their game. I noticed that as well, so that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. The slow motion for this episode worked really, really well. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of the slow motion. I think it shows too much of the limits of their visual effects, but I thought in this episode it was really, really well done. And yeah, definitely the lightning bolt, but also just what Patty's reaction to seeing him come that close to her, I thought that was really well done as well. So,
you know, speaking of the lightning bolt, I don't know that this is a positive or a negative at all, just an observation. Week 2, second dead villain that they've killed.
He's dead. That's right.
Yeah,
dead,
and once again, I believe they were in a position both times where it's like either this is the only way we know how to stop them is to kill them. So I get it, but it's just I wish in the process of doing this they would address it. Because they made such a big deal out of that, and saying we don't let metahumans die. We're different than Oliver is, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, Oliver's just got his crap together. I just wish. So I totally get why they killed Atom Smasher. I totally get why they killed Sand Demon. I get it. That's not a problem with me. I just wish in the midst of all this, the morals and the ethics they have about that they really trumped on over and over and over again season 1. I wish they would just stop for a second and show a quick conversation between Joe and Barry, just something to say, hey, audience, we respect you. We know we said this in season 1, so we're going to dress it a little bit here. That would have been nice.
Maybe by the 3rd kill, they might do
maybe it takes 3.
You know?
Yeah.
I figured
3 dead guys.
I was like, Kaori, you know, I mean, you're doing the Flash after show there last week. I mean, it's hard to tell even. Sorry, the Arrow recap show. It's hard to see, like, because I mean, Diggle's just shooting guys. I'm like, now are those shoulder wounds? Are they leg wounds?
Right.
I mean, are they fatal wounds? These people dying? Are they living? It's not like, you know, when you're watching like a cartoon, you know, and a cartoon always gets up and runs away, so it's like it's always hard to tell.
When G.I. Joe shoots down a Cobra plane, you always see a parachute come out of the Cobra plane.
Well, in season 1, we always got that post-episode scene where he's put them in the prison, right?
Yes.
Put them, you have the interaction with them. That is not happening with any of the
Only
people.
Except for Jay Garret.
Except for Jay Garret,
who looks really cool in the prison. He's
he's got the red leather jacket to go with the
great.
leather.
Total soap opera.
Smooth, hot.
Like, where's he
you
doing
know?
his hair?
That's right. But no, it's fascinating to me that you're right, John. And I thought of you as soon as he died in this 2nd episode. I was like, John's right. They're killing these guys, and no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how they're playing this, and they may be laying the groundwork because Iris is the one that's being like, look, clear the room. It's the 2nd time she's done that, right? She did that last episode.
Right.
So they're establishing that she's kind of taking a little bit of the Joe role and like calling him out on his stuff and making him confront stuff. So it may be what's coming after the 3rd kill, probably.
But and you know what? This is another thing I should have mentioned in my positives. You were pointing it out. I feel like they are finding Iris's place.
Yeah.
Because you know, a lot of the criticism about Iris is like, what's her role here? Like, like all these other people are solving these massive problems and figuring this stuff out. But she's a journalist. I think they have really subtly but convincingly, they're edging out what her role is. She is Barry's ultimate sounding board and the one that he will ultimately listen to. And I think they're rolling that out in a really nice way without being overt about it. So I'm bravo for how they're handling it.
It's not romantic in any way.
And it's not romantic at this point. Because, you know, he's got Linda and Patty. And,
he's got options.
And Caitlin's going to have some interest again.
Always got options.
Always got options. All right, what's the next question here? The next one comes to us from Dallas Ludlam, who writes, the Speed Force in the comics is a complicated plot device. You ain't kidding. How do you think the Flash can convey it without confusion? Simple. You don't. You simply don't. Like, for instance, tonight Barry, when talking to Caitlin, was there any trace of the Speed Force in his system? You've never known what the Speed Force is. You've never even heard of the Speed Force until you heard Harrison mention it once, let alone come up with a medical procedure for figuring out how many midichlorians are in this guy's Speed Force. That's never been a thing. And all of a sudden, woo, and you know what? I'm okay with that because that's just like the show saying, midichlorians, carbon dioxide, Speed Force. Like, you don't, some things you don't need to explain. And I have a feeling, and I could be totally wrong about this, I don't think, at least not in season 2, I don't think they're going to feel the burden that we have to explain the Speed Force. Like Wells's wheelchair had a battery in it. How's that give you Speed Force? I don't know. But they're just kind of tiptoeing around it. And for me, I'm totally cool with it. I don't need to understand the Speed Force. Maybe it becomes a bigger plot issue in season 3 or season 4. And when they get deeper and deeper and deeper into stuff, maybe at that point they start to address it. At this point, I don't think they're all that concerned about it. I don't know, David, do you think they're going to address it, or?
I think you said it. I think you said it well earlier, John. We were talking about how some things work better on the page than they do on screen. There was this is like 3 or 4 years ago. Again, this is me getting nerdy comic book, but Francis Manipool was doing the Flash for a while back when the New 52, back to the when just first came out, and his interpretation of it is when Barry was it wasn't Barry, but when the Flash was walking out, he would see all these different bubbles of all these different things happening around him simultaneously. He could see everything going on in a certain radius. He could pick and choose what he wanted to do, and that was basically how the reader could interpret visually to see what the Flash sees when they're in the Speed Force. Now, how you do that on screen? Well, first of all, probably costs a lot of money. Maybe there's a simpler way to do it. But like you said, John, maybe some things just work better on the page. Maybe they should just leave it alone.
Yeah.
And just not do it.
Yeah.
Not worry about it.
I think they're using Joe as the vehicle for the audience. Like when they were explaining the things about Earth 1, Earth 2, Joe was like, say this again, I don't understand.
He was us.
He just walked out.
And that's what good pieces do. They find somebody to become the audience, and they don't make them stupid, but they make it be like, ask logical questions. Like, what does this mean? What do you mean? Because for people who understand this, it's like breathing. It's nothing to them. And I think they've got Cisco and Dr. Stein to explain this stuff. And they're playing the long game, like you said, John, maybe three, four seasons down the road, we'll get a full picture of it. There's no rush to do a whole concept of it, right? We discover it and enjoy it as fans.
Yeah, because as a viewer, I really am not concerned about the explanation of it. I'm just like, okay, I'm just enjoying the show. So
sometimes you just accept it's part of the world. I mean, you watch Star Wars, you don't need an explanation for how everything works. I mean, you may see how a lightsaber, the crystal goes in here, this goes in here, but you don't, like, how does that really work? It's not important, really, necessarily. It's about the characters, about what they're going through. That's always a vital part of any story.
Right.
Yeah. So why is one sock always mixed into laundry? Speed Force. I mean, who cares? All right, last question of the night. And the final question we got comes from Paul. Wait a second. Did I take 2 questions from the same dude?
Oh,
I think we did.
Yes.
Paul Gaston. I got 2 questions in under the wire. And he wrote, do you think Jay Garret will get his powers back soon? And could Barry help with that? P.S. Could Jay know more speedsters? I have a feeling Jay probably does know more. Now, a lot of people were writing to me this week, like, when's Wally West going to come in? And I think it's, I don't think the Flash writers want to blow their proverbial load too early. I mean, there's no, look, we just got Jay Garret in season 2. No reason we have to get Wally West this season at all. Yeah. Once again, that's something that can come season 3, season 4. Let's not empty our chamber all right now. As far as Jay getting his speed back, I am very curious. If Sand Demon can come through the dimensional rift, all powers intact, why does Jay not?
Yeah.
What made Jay suddenly lose his powers? I am very curious, and I hope, since they've created what seems to be a little bit of a contradiction in the sense that, hey, one metahuman came through, kept their powers, and one didn't. I gotta believe they have a story to tell there. I gotta believe there's gonna be a story hook in there where they do explain to us why Jay in particular didn't get it. And I think there's more to Jay than meets the eye. I don't think he's a Professor Wells, that he's actually a bad guy, but I think there is more than what we're being shown with him so far. And yeah, I do believe Barry will be instrumental in helping him get his powers back. David, what do you think?
I think it's a mental blockage.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's,
say the same thing.
Not to get too graphic, I think it might be a little performance issue. Maybe he's got something in his head, I mean, he does need Viagra. Yeah.
Speed Force Viagra.
Remember, like in Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi version, that, remember he started kind of like losing his powers and everything, but he wasn't losing his powers, it's all in his head.
Yeah.
He's just going through something. So maybe Jay's got something in his past we just don't know about.
Maybe he has to have Nookie with Caitlin.
Maybe that's why. Maybe he needs to go with Caitlin and Patty. That's why they're all coming in at once. No.
I was going to say, this is a prediction, obviously, and I'm probably wrong. I don't think he's going to get his powers back until he can travel into another Earth realm. That's what I think.
Oh, that's a good thing too.
I thought I remembered in the comics that there was a run where they had this issue where he couldn't. It was a mental block for his powers because he had done something with his powers that made him think he lost them. Like he hurt somebody or he did something in effect. And like you were saying, we don't know David, we don't know like what his mental block might be, and it might have been in coming over. We don't know what he did in Earth 2 that may have happened before he came to Earth 1, and so it got sucked out. Like,
was it an injury? Like we saw, Zoom was about to kill him and started the process of killing him. Maybe there's an injury there, or
and just a thought, he was creeping on them for the last 6 months, and for someone who has no powers, it's kind of weird that they didn't notice him around.
Yeah, like we saw right from episode 1, he's sneaking around, taking. But don't mind me with my giant DSLR.
And it wouldn't be surprised you have that moment where he goes, I've always had my powers, I just wanted you to trust me.
And, and yet he didn't know that they had his helmet. And
right.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to pull you to like judge me by my size.
Well, all right, folks, that'll do it for us for this installment of the Collider Flash Recap Show, Season 2, Episode 2. Let us know your thoughts. Jump into the comment section of this video. Leave your thoughts, your opinions, your theories, your predictions on any or all of the topics that we discussed here tonight. I want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. First of all, sitting on my left, David, where can people find you online?
You find me on Twitter, at Griffin D. That's right. And also right here every Tuesday on the Flash After Show.
That's how G David is. His Twitter handle is @Twitter.
They just gave it to me like, look, we don't need it. You can have it.
Sitting over here, John, where can people find you online?
I'm at The Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram, and you can keep up with me and the shows that I'm hosting and things that I'm doing there.
And on the end there, Miss Kaori Takee. Kaori, where can people find you?
Thank you guys for having me. I am followed over down here. Kaori is Sounds stalkery, but you can follow me if you want. That's all good.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter and on Facebook simply at John Campea. Don't forget, keep sending us tweets. Use the hashtag ColliderFlash. Send them on in. We'll be back again next week for Flash Season 2, Episode 3 with Michael Ironside, which I'm very excited about. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.